This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
British PM May steps down, announces departure date. Later for DR Congo. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme. In Africa's Dambile looking to challenge senior competitors in 100 metres and 200 metres. The country's second ever to not be able to deliver Brexit. May says that she will stay on in a caretaker capacity until a new leader is.
I have not been able to do so. I tried 3 times. I believe it was right to persevere, even when the new Prime Minister to lead that effort. So I am today announcing that I will resign as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party on Friday the 7th, that the process for electing a new leader should begin in the following week. I have kept Her Majesty the... It is and will always remain a matter of deep regret to me that I have not been able to deliver Brexit.
Malawi now, where provincial results show President Peter Mutharika is leading with 40% of the votes counted so far. His main opposition, Lazarus Chakwera, has garnered 35%, while Vice President Saulus Chilima is looking to defeat him. He's already warned of attempts to rig the poll, saying counting by his Malawi Congress Party puts him in the lead. Malawi has no runoff from announcing premature results. Official results are expected on Saturday. Well, let's now join CGTN's Wilekista Nyabwa, who is following the early lead, as we've been saying, with 75% of the votes counted so far. What more can you tell us?
Well, thank you very much. We can tell that the numbers have actually gone up. 99% of polling centres have now relayed their results. However, they did say that they wanted to be sure, they wanted to take their time and verify and ensure that what they put out, the Malawi Electoral Commission is expected to update the numbers. And given that the board is inching ever closer to 100%, meaning all the votes will be in, it is even possible that by the time they get here, all the results will be in and they might be giving all those results. However, that is speculation at this point because we are just waiting to see. However, the board is slightly over 99% of polling stations have already relayed their information. So from that point, we want to take victory once those results are in. Karen.
And Wilekista, Malawi opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera has warned against attempts to...
Well, yesterday, the election, they spoke about, the Electoral Commission did speak about instances where in one particular polling centre filled with the numbers from the ground, like instances where more people were reported to have voted in a centre than the people who were registered in that centre. This report turned out to be unfounded. So these are some who were away from their workstations, were supposed to have been allowed to vote in different places. However, this was applied irregularly. Some people were allowed in some instances and some people were not allowed. To really make up like a solid concern that there were some hiccups that could be ironed out going for the vote. Observers, especially talking about the full picture, if 100% of the results will be in, then we will know who the clear winner or who the winner in this race is, and whether it is a tightly contested race or whether there is a gap.
More, we'll have a clearer picture in 2 hours' time. When do you expect the final results?
Are in. We will be hoping at this point it's really result and it can declare a winner one way or another. However, this is subject to there being no disputes or no challenge.
That update from Blantyre in Malawi. That was CGTN's Wilekista Nyabwa there following the election. Announced her resignation outside 10 Downing Street. The country's second ever female Prime Minister will be still over Brexit. May says that she will stay on in a caretaker capacity until a new leader is chosen. London, Richard Well, the Prime Minister, she's announced her resignation and the timeline for stepping down. What more can you tell us?
Downing Street, close to tears, her voice breaking kind of compromise. She put her Brexit deal that she'd agreed over, said no, resoundingly. So then she put together what she vote on allowing the people of Britain to have their say. It caused uproar in the parliamentary rank table. At the end, she really ran out of road. She couldn't even get legislation from Downing Street to Parliament, let alone after David Cameron ordered that Brexit referendum that went, and she promised to a more compassionate government, a government that thought about those who were than Brexit during her 3 years. And as you said, Karen, she will regret for the rest of her life, she says, the fact that she wasn't able to get a deal. She said Brexit means Brexit. Well, ultimately it was Brexit which did for her.
And Richard, what?
It's a complicated agenda. Her last day in the job will be June the 7th, Friday. Then everybody can take the weekend off, and on the Monday the 10th, candidates who are running will kick off their leadership campaigns. This is a period when Brexit will be parked up. There'll be nothing happening on Brexit for us to take them into the next stage as a try to get Brexit across the line. There are several candidates, but the favourite is the former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. He tried once before and failed. Teresa May who would go for a no-deal Brexit.
OK, thank you for that, Richard. Interesting times in British politics. That was CGTN's Richard Bestick there, following the events of today in London. Unless attacks by armed groups on medical facilities and workers in the Democratic Republic of the Congo stop. According to the United Nations, there have been more than 130 attacks on health facilities of the eastern DRC. They raided Tiani Chichani village, where they looted and burned a local health. Attacks are discouraging people from reaching life-saving treatment and delaying the vaccination campaigns in an effort to have a safer environment for aid workers to access affected areas.
The United Nations Emergency Ebola Response Coordinator looks to boost efforts to contain the epidemic.
Has been appointed UN Emergency Ebola Response Coordinator in the Ebola-affected areas of DRC. Mr. Greasley, who brings a wealth of humanitarian leadership and political and security experience to the role, will report national support for the Ebola response and work to ensure that an enabling environment, particularly security and political, is in place to allow the Ebola.
But violence as well as community mistrust has created a dangerous atmosphere for aid workers.
The Ebola response is working in an operating environment in our effort to fight the disease. Therefore, an enhanced UN-wide response is required to overcome these operating constraints, and we have no time to lose. Closing quotes, said DSRSG Greasley.
It's hoped that with stronger political engagement, better access to communities in need can be negotiated.
For us in Kinshasa. Chris, health officials have warned that Ebola may spiral out of control unless attacks by armed groups are stopped. What is the latest you have there?
This appointment will help in as far as strengthening the coordination of the complicated. Having military boots on the ground alone won't help, because many of the militia, the armed groups there are tribal militia that were formed to protect down their arms so that the Ebola outbreak can be brought to an end.
And 10 people were kidnapped by an armed. What needs to be done to stop attacks? You have mentioned that obviously relations with the local community are important.
exist and that these people are just here to sell their vaccines and make money. So they have to reinforce the security at all the Ebola treatment centers, especially in Katwa and Butembo, where there have been very many attacks on health facilities. And then they also have to protect the health league. Some patients who have Ebola flee to different areas and then it spreads. And this is an area that is bordering Rwanda, South Sudan and Uganda. So there's a real fear that it might spread to other areas. So the appointment of Dr. David Gracely is going to so that healthcare workers can do their job and bring the disease to an end.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to other news now. Algeria and Argentina are the latest countries to be declared malaria-free. The world, Algeria and Argentina, now brings the total number of countries declared malaria-free to 38.
For both Algeria and Argentina, malaria has a history that spans hundreds of years.
They are based on efforts by health professionals who have integrated and adhere to the recommendations from the World Health Organization.
In the country, we have obtained the certification, and we celebrate this by lowering our arms. We will continue to support them, and we know their challenges.
Algeria and Argentina in eliminating malaria can be attributed to provision of free diagnosis and treatment within their borders.
And the country has done this through consistent good investment and also through having established a primary health care system that has gone a long way towards universal health coverage. Be done in the African continent and in the region to get on top of the malaria program.
Transmitted through the bite of female Anopheles mosquito, malaria remains one of the world's leading.
Well, over 2 years, she ran a good race and remained resilient during her term. CGTN's Hannah Hook that later in the programme. We are now going to a break. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including. And Botswana defends elephant hunting ban reversal.
At the heart of Lagos City, in the business district of Victoria Island, terror culture is growing into.
Bolanle Austin Peters has created that platform where shows are running every month. Different things are happening right here at the Terror Arena.
She's brought a lot of youngsters' dream to
in Nigeria is coming along quite fine.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
That happened early on Friday. The internationally recognized government blames Khalifa Haftar's eastern forces, who are offensive, have been meeting. Fighting has been concentrated on the outskirts of the capital, but the Rixos is closer to the city centre. Since April, there have been trapped in the city centre at the risk of being caught up in the ceasefire. Leaders of both sides have been travelling to Europe, appealing for support. Well, Yasser Hakim has been following Devel, a luxury hotel in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. What is the latest you have there?
Like you said, the hotel hosts the meetings of the parliament, of the government of national accord, and the Libyan National Army led by Khalifa Haftar has denied the accusations by the national accord government that they have bombed or have focusing on the south of Tripoli, and that they have targeted 2 areas where there were military installations and were military depots in both areas. Meanwhile, clashes did continue throughout the day and the last night, and the air raids as well. A high-ranking official and officer in the army, and this is the biggest loss by the army in the war since it started. His name opposition forces, or in the army that is related to the national government or the national accord government.
Both Haftar and the UN-backed Fayez come out of these meetings.
Well, meetings did not really have an effect or impact on the situation in Libya. The meeting tried to attract support from the European powers to their cause. France, though it recognizes that is launched by Khalifa Haftar and the Libyan National Army. whilst Italy is a staunch supporter of the Fayez Sarraj National Accord government and Presidential Council. But it has not worked well, especially that Fayez Sarraj has said that for a ceasefire to take place, it has to be conditioned seed return to their bases and that Khalifa Haftar would be removed from any political agreement. And those two conditions were not approved by any side. On the other hand, but does not mean that he will have a ceasefire. And therefore we can see that the war will continue in Libya.
Okay, thank you very much. Is defending its decision to lift a ban on elephant hunting in the country. The resolution, which was announced on Thursday, has sparked some criticism from some conservation and elephant advocacy groups. The ruling follows a year-long process in Botswana to evaluate the ban, which was put in place 5 years ago by
conservation and elephant advocacy groups are angry and in dismay over Botswana's decision to lift its ban on elephant hunting. The deal with its consequences.
It was never meant to be permanent. It was to observe what was happening. Those who chose to call it a ban, call it a ban. Conservation is in our DNA. We have never been reckless and it has not changed. But our responsibility for our people as well has not changed, and we must make
population. The animal causes damage to human communities as well as natural resources like water.
That's why we have dedicated 40% of our country to conservation. This is the commitment that and the sacrifice that Botswana have made.
Many of these have called for a global ban on elephant ivory trade to be relaxed due to the growing number of animals.
Holding an exhibition on sexual violence against women. After a brutal civil war, the students say their art can be a tool for social change. Despite a peace deal signed last year, the UN says rape and sexual...
The high illiteracy rate, art can be a powerful means of communication. South Sudanese art students from the University of Juba have been holding an exhibition to raise awareness of sexual and gender-based violence.
They are there, they can judge a case against any... Women are like you can see in painting, women are seated very far away.
This painting is like, it's here, no respect for women. They just start shouting of her, beating the woman. It's supposed... These things should not happen.
It is an opportunity to reach 8,000 students from different tribes, as well as thousands more visitors from the surrounding communities.
Why should this be? Why should people perpetrate violence against women? It needs to stop. The feedback we are getting is so wonderful. Cry. Because some of these paintings connect them back to their experiences.
After 6 years of armed conflict, the students say they continue their studies, with many of the 50 pieces on display already sold to local art lovers. Daniel.
Kenya's Safaricom plans a $13 million suspends CEO over breach of trust.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise and global.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problems.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Property rights to its hit mobile financial services platform M-Pesa from Britain's Vodafone. It'll form a joint venture with one of its key shareholders, South Africa's Vodacom, to execute.
Kenya's Safaricom is planning a joint venture with Vodacom to acquire the intellectual property rights to the M-Pesa mobile financial service platform from Britain's Vodafone royalties paid to Vodafone and expand the service to new African markets.
We've got shareholder approval on this side. It's not a big transaction, you know, it requires us to get approval of our board and our shareholders, and requires them to not only get approval of their shareholders, but they also require the South African Reserve.
Revenue from M-Pesa stood at $741 million in Safaricom's financial year to the end of March. Vodacom, a South African operator which owns 35% of Safaricom, pays 5% overdraft facility for M-Pesa. Dubbed Fuliza, the new service has garnered 8.8 million users who
map of M-Pesa, because at the moment the roadmap is determined by Vodafone, and given that the bulk things like overdraft, for example, we came up with overdraft, not Vodafone.
One of the new markets Safaricom has its eye on is Ethiopia.
Payments market, the telecom markets and the banking sector, we think there could be opportunities that we can explore.
Market with more than 30 million subscribers. Britain's Vodafone has a 5% stake and the Kenyan
group Old Mutual has suspended CEO Peter Moyo after a series of talks. The Old Mutual board decided that there has been a suspended Moyo with immediate 17 as CEO of Old Mutual Emerging Markets and later of Old Mutual, having left in 2005 to take over at Alexander Forbes. Well, according to Old Mutual's remuneration report for the year ended December 2018, Moyo's total contributor to the increase was the Managed Separation Incentive Plan, for which he was awarded a little over $1 million. Supply chains. IMF's latest research shows consumers as well as many producers in both countries have been negatively affected. While the fund warns that it is relatively modest at this time. The latest escalation could significantly dent business and consumers in the US and China. IMF researchers using price data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics importers. There was almost no change in the ex-tariff border prices of imports from China. Kampala. The money has been handed over to Trademark East Africa, which is building a one-stop border post for the two countries. South Sudan's government says the facility would speed up the process of clearing goods at the border.
And she says one of her biggest challenges is the lack of a unifying currency. She sells goods in South Sudan currency, goods.
Now these things are expensive there in Uganda. And here to change dollar is very expensive. So we have that problem every day. Today, if you change at this...
Traders are asked to pay money. But South Sudan's government says the 9 million the country.
It will also decrease corruption, which is the most important point there. When things are handled by some scrupulous people.
Many goods in South Sudan are imported, and many of those doing business in South Sudan are from neighboring countries. The one border post would only resolve a small part of the problem of trade in South Sudan. Other issues that need to be tackled include paying taxes at every South Sudan.
The Tanzanian government says it will no longer engage with mining company Acacia in any capacity. This comes as negotiations between Acacia and the East African Tanzanian government's chief spokesperson to seek out some insights into the ongoing dispute.
So could you please give us a summary of the...
To Acacia, because we found out that there are some evasions in paying tax apart from other illegal actions. So the dispute arose from that of Tanzania.
So what were these terms that were in?
So we agreed that the government will own 16% of the share. So the agreement was and remains to form a new company, which will now be jointly owned between Barrick and the ship with Acacia. Point blank that we cannot work with Acacia any longer. And we have three reasons for that. First of all is the legal status of Acacia. Acacia is listed, Acacia is Acacia. Did a lot of, or a myriad of violations of the laws in Tanzania. As you know, just a few days ago, ex-officials of Acacia are now in court at the Kisutu Resident Magistrate Court in Dar es Salaam for a number of offenses, including corruption, forgery, and economic sabotage.
We know that mining is a key sector for Tanzania and, the global audience.
As we speak, we have 3 big companies are ready. They are just waiting for the cabinet because so we have 3 new deals just waiting, and we are ready to allow them to mine in Tanzania. So the investment climate is very okay. We welcome them. We are very predictable.
We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including advocates for autism push for more inclusion in Ghana. In Ghana, supporters of those with autism warn that stigma continues to make it difficult for people living with the condition to begins early in childhood and lasts throughout a person's life. Advocates for autism awareness are calling for better inclusion.
Preparing for school, Olivia Bafo-Ewa is mother of 16-year-old Mami Bema, who has autism, a complex health condition that affects.
These are some of the things or issues the children. There's somebody in my church, as soon as we enter, she will just move far away from us. She doesn't understand. If she does, she'll be more accommodating.
The government has yet to fully implement it. It requires donations from non-governmental organizations as it's not fully supported by the government's budget on education. So, these children are taught how to communicate. Teachers at this autism center say these children have talents worth nurturing. And they want society to give people with autism a chance.
If you have you and I tell you that I have teenagers, I want them to come and do some kind of internship in your shop, and they would come with their support work opportunity.
Advocates of autism awareness are also calling for more inclusion for people living with autism.
Persons with autism, to eliminate that notion. That's why I'm trying to force so that they'll be included in so many things that we do. We have some who paint, we have some who bead, we have
increased awareness and the needed support. Olivia Bafo-Ewa believes people with autism can live a better life. Her daughter Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Let's now go to Burkina Faso, where we meet Malik Zougrana.
Malik Zougrana is creating a masterpiece in his workshop located in the capital, Ouagadougou. He is mixing used tires with wood to make unique furniture. This is his way.
They would pick up tires and burn them. That made me realize that when you burn tires, the gas is dangerous. Thus, the environment will be cleaner.
And customers flock here.
And a mirror, all made with tires. This goes to show that you can turn tires into something useful.
Malik's creation are a standout feature in any environment. Don Makugu, CGTN.
South Africa's Dambile looking to challenge senior competitors in 100 metres and 200 metres.